The spotlight crashed down like a verdict from the gods, pinning me to the stage as the final note of my aria hung in the air, raw and unraveling. "You're nothing without me," he whispered from the wings, his voice slicing through the applause like a knife through silk. And in that instant, I knew he'd stolen more than the show, he'd gutted my soul. Daniel Harper, rising tenor from the dusty suburbs of Ohio, reduced to a trembling shadow under the glare of Broadway's unforgiving lights. My heart pounding not from triumph, but from the terror of loving a man who owned the darkness I could never escape. I stumbled off stage into the chaos of the green room, the roar of the crowd fading into a distant hum, my chest heaving as if I'd run a marathon through hell. The mirror cracked under my fist before I even realized I'd swung, shards scattering like the fragments of the life I'd built note by shattered note. And there he was, Alex Kane, the brooding baritone who'd headlined a dozen off-Broadway hits, leaning against the doorframe with that predatory smile, his eyes devouring me whole. "You sang like you were dying up there, Danny," he murmured, stepping closer, his cologne a mix of sandalwood and sin that always made my knees buckle. "But we both know you're just getting started." The theaters smelled of old velvet and fresh desperation, the kind that clung to every aspiring artist like a second skin. I'd clawed my way to this audition for Echoes of the Hudson, a gritty musical about lost loves and reclaimed dreams set against the jagged skyline of Manhattan, on sheer willpower and a voice honed in the echoey basements of community theaters back home. Daniel Harper, 26, gay as a summer rainbow in June, and broke enough to count loose change for subway fare. My mama used to say I had the voice of an angel trapped in a devil's body, whatever that meant. But tonight, under the skeletal arms of the proscenium arch, I felt more like a lamb led to the slaughter. Alex Kane was the slaughterer. I'd seen his name in lights before, Phantom Revival, rent tours that packed houses from coast to coast, but up close, he was a force of nature wrapped in tailored wool. With shoulders that filled out his tucks like he was born to command stages and hearts alike. His dark hair slicked back just enough to hint at the wildness beneath. He was 32. Out and proud in a way that made headlines, not whispers, and rumor had it he'd bedded half the chorus boys in the 5 boroughs. When the director paired us for the duet, Rivers Run Deep, a gut-wrenching ballad about 2 men torn by the current of their secrets, I felt the pull immediately, like the Hudson itself dragging me under. We rehearsed in a cramped studio off Times Square, the kind where the walls sweated from the heat of too many bodies and broken AC units. "Lean into it, Daniel," Alex coached on day one, his hand ghosting the small of my back as he adjusted my stance. His touch was electric, a spark that ignited something feral in me, something I'd buried under layers of small-town shame. I was out to my family, sort of, but New York demanded more, bolder, brasher, unapologetic. Alex embodied that. He moved like he owned the air around him, his baritone rumbling low and resonant, wrapping around my tenor like smoke around flame. By week 2, the lines between rehearsal and reality blurred. We'd linger after the others left, running scales until our voices cracked, then collapse onto the worn leather couch with takeout from the halal cart downstairs. "Tell me about Ohio," he'd say, popping a falafel ball into his mouth, his green eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that made my pulse stutter. I'd spin tales of cornfields that stretched like endless regrets, of high school crushes stolen in the bleachers, of the day I came out to my preacher father and watched his faith in me fracture like fine china. Alex listened, really listened, his laughter a balm on old wounds. "Sounds like you were born to break free, Danny boy," he'd say, clinking his water bottle against mine. And tonight, we make him believe it. The passionate performance came on a Thursday night. The house packed with critics from the New York Times and scouts from Lincoln Center. The stage was a fever dream, fog machines churning mist over a faux riverbank, projections of the city lights flickering like distant memories. I was Elias, the wide-eyed immigrant chasing stardom. Alex was Thorne, the jaded mentor with a heart scarred by too many goodbyes. Our duet built slow, my voice soaring tentative and hopeful, his grounding it with gravelly depth, until the climax, where Thorne confesses his love in a torrent of lyrics that felt ripped from my own diary. Your rivers call to me, wild and untamed, but I'm the storm that bears your name. Drown in me. Let the waters claim what was never yours to tame. The audience held its breath as our hands brushed in the blocking, a scripted touch that lingered a beat too long. My skin burned where his fingers grazed my wrist, and for a split second, the theater vanished. It was just us, two souls colliding in the dark, the music a veil for the truth screaming between us. Applause erupted like thunder, but I barely heard it. Backstage, as the adrenaline crashed, Alex cornered me in that shadowed alcove, his body pressing mine against the cold brick wall. That wasn't acting, he breathed, his lips brushing my ear, whiskey scented from the cast party we'd skipped. Was it Daniel? I shook my head, words failing as his mouth claimed mine, fierce, demanding, tasting of victory and vulnerability. It was my first real kiss in the city, the kind that rewrote your geography. His hands roamed, mapping the planes of my chest through my sweat-damp shirt, and I arched into him, lost in the rhythm we'd perfected on stage. But even as my body surrendered, a whisper of doubt slithered in. Men like Alex didn't fall for boys like me. They used us as stepping stones, shiny props in their grand narratives. Yet in that moment, with his heartbeat thundering against mine, I let myself believe the lie. He claimed me like I was already his heart. The works, and God help me, I handed them over without a fight. We tumbled into his walk-up in the Village that night, a third-floor brownstone crammed with sheet music and half-read scripts. The bed was unmade, sheets tangled like the thoughts racing through my head, but Alex moved with purpose, stripping away my defenses layer by layer. You're beautiful when you sing, he murmured against my throat, his teeth grazing skin that pebbled under his touch. I gasped, fingers threading through his hair, pulling him closer as if I could anchor myself to this feeling forever. It was messy, urgent, bodies slick with sweat, breaths mingling in the humid air of an October heatwave that refused to break. He knew exactly how to unravel me, a nip here, a stroke there, his voice humming low praises that vibrated through my core. Mi tesoro, he called me, my treasure, in a bastardized Italian that made me laugh even as tears pricked my eyes. Afterward, we lay entwined, the city humming beyond the fire escape like a lullaby for the damned. His fingers traced lazy patterns on my hip, dipping into the dimples there, and for the first time since landing in Penn Station with a duffel and dreams, I felt seen. Not as the Ohio kid with the pretty voice, but as Daniel Hood. Just alive. Stay, he said simply, as dawn crept in, painting the walls gold. Don't go back to that shitty sublet. I nodded, burrowing into his side, inhaling the musk of us. In the soft light, his face softened, the sharp edges of his performer mask melting away. There was a boy there, hungry for connection amid the spotlight's glare. But New York doesn't do soft landings. By morning, my phone buzzed with texts from my agent, rave reviews, callback for the lead. And from Mom, proud of you, baby. But remember who you are. Alex stirred, kissing my shoulder. Coffee? He asked, voice rough with sleep. I smiled, watching him pad to the kitchen in nothing but boxers. His ass a masterpiece that made my mouth water. This was it, the start of something epic. Two artists forging a love as bold as our harmonies. Little did I know, the discord was already tuning up. Weeks blurred into a whirlwind of callbacks and chemistry reads. Echoes greenlit for a full run come spring. Alex and I became the talk of the rehearsal rooms, the golden duo. Voices blending like bourbon and honey. The stage. We carved out stolen moments, a quick fuck in the prop room. His hand clamped over my mouth to muffle my cries, lazy Sundays in bed. Debating Sondheim over greasy diner eggs. He opened up about his ex. A director who'd cheated with the understudy, leaving Alex adrift in a sea of one-night stands. I don't do love anymore, he'd say, then pull me close, contradicting himself with every tender glance. I believed him anyway, because when he looked at me like that, eyes dark with want, lips curved in that half-smile, I felt invincible. But cracks spiderwebbed through the facade. Late nights, I'd wake to find him scrolling casting calls. His jaw tight with the quiet terror of aging out of leading man roles. You're too good for this grind, I'd murmur, kissing his temple. He'd laugh it off. But I saw the shadow in his eyes. The fear that the stage would spit him out like yesterday's news. And me? I was riding high. But imposter syndrome gnawed at my edges. What if they realized I was just a lucky fraud? Voice pretty but soul shallow? The first real fight came over a script change. The director wanted to amp up Thorne's backstory, add a betrayal subplot where he sells out Elias for a solo spot. It's dramatic gold, the director insisted. Alex nodded eagerly, I balked. It cheapens us, I argued, voice rising in the echoey hall. Makes Thorne the villain. Alex shot me a look, sharp, dismissive. Art's not about coddling feelings. Then it's about truth. Even the ugly kind. We stormed off separately. Me to my sublet, I'd kept it. Just in case. Him to some bar in Hell's Kitchen. He showed up at midnight, drunk and defiant, pounding on my door until neighbors threatened to call the cops. You think you're better than this? He slurred, pushing inside, his breath hot against my neck. Anger flipped to lust in a heartbeat. We fucked against the wall, hard and punishing, nails raking skin, bites marking territory. It was cathartic, a release valve for the pressure building beneath our polished exteriors. In the afterglow, tangled on my lumpy futon, he whispered apologies into my hair. I need this role. Then he need you in it with me. I forgave him, because forgiveness was easier than facing the alternative. We were in love, weren't we? The kind that poets bleed for. That Broadway immortalizes in torch songs. Or so I told myself as autumn leaves turned the parks to fire. And Alex's hand found mine under the table at cast dinners. A secret squeeze that said mine. Yet secrets have a way of festering. One crisp November evening, after a grueling 12-hour rehearsal, I overheard him on the phone in the bathroom, door ajar, steam curling out like cigarette smoke. "Yeah, it's perfect," he was saying, voice low and laced with that charm he wielded like a weapon. "The kid's got pipes, but he's green. I can mold him, make us both shine." The pause. Then laughter. Rich and rolling. Betrayal arc? Hell yes. Gives me the edge for that solo number. Directors eating it up. My blood ran cold. Could mold him? The words twisted like a knife, carving out the trust I'd so recklessly given. I slipped out before he emerged, wandering the streets until my feet ached, the city lights blurring through hot tears. Was it all a game? The passion? The promises? Props in his master plan to claw back relevance? By the time I returned, he'd crashed on my couch, oblivious. I watched him sleep, chest rising and falling in peaceful rhythm, and hated how much I still wanted to curl beside him. I realized, was a thief in the night, stealing reason, leaving only ache. Winter clamped down on the city like a jealous lover, blanketing Manhattan in snow that muffled screams and secrets alike. Rehearsals for echoes intensified, the betrayal subplot woven in like barbed wire through our scenes. On stage, it played electric, Thorne's calculated smile as he undermines Elias, my character's wide-eyed shock melting into fury. Alex thrived in it, his performance a masterclass in controlled chaos, eyes flashing with feigned remorse, voice dripping venom wrapped in velvet. "Brilliant," the director crowed after one run-through, clapping Alex on the back. I forced a smile, but inside, the lines bled into life. Every "I trusted you" I spat at him felt aimed at the man behind the mask. The stage. We danced a delicate tango around the rift. Morning started with coffee and careful kisses, his lips tentative as if testing for landmines. "You're quiet lately," he'd say over burnt toast in my kitchen, his foot hooking mine under the table. I'd shrug, blame it on vocal strain, and he'd let it slide, too wrapped up in his own orbit of auditions and agent calls. But the distance grew, a chasm widening with every unspoken accusation. I threw myself into the music, practicing until my throat bled, seeking solace in scales that echoed my solitude. One night, after a cast party at some dive in the East Village, cheap beer and cheaper flirtations, I found him cornered by a producer, a silver-haired shark named Victor Lang, who funded half the shows on the Great White Way, had his hand on Alex's arm, leaning in too close, murmuring about private readings and mutual benefits. Alex laughed it off, that easy deflection he mastered, but I saw the calculation in his eyes, the way he didn't pull away. Jealousy hit me like a sucker punch, hot and irrational. Was this the game? Trade touches for tickets to the big leagues? I dragged him out into the alley, the snow swirling like confetti from a funeral. What the fuck was that? This? Breath fogging the air between us. Alex blinked, feigning innocence. Networking. Then "It's how this town works," his tone patronized, like I was the naive farm boy again. "Victor's got pull, could get us previews in Variety." I shoved him, hard enough to make him stumble against the dumpster. "Or get you laid on a penthouse couch while I fetch your coat?" The words flew out, venomous, born of that overheard call I'd buried like a bad dream. His face hardened, the performer mask slamming down. You think everything's a conspiracy? That I'm using you? He stepped closer, towering over me, his voice a growl that sent shivers down my spine. Not all fear. I've given you everything, connections, a shot at this life. And you throw it back like scraps. The alley spun, snowflakes melting on my lashes as tears threatened. He was right. In a way, I'd been a nobody before him. But the cost? My pride. My peace, shredded for his spotlight. We made up in the cab ride home, his hand sliding up my thigh under the pretense of warmth, fingers deft and demanding. By the time we hit my apartment, clothes littered the hall like casualties. He took me slow that night, reverent almost, kisses trailing fire down my spine, whispers of sorry gasped against my skin. I clung to him, nails digging crescents into his shoulders, chasing oblivion in the press of his body. It was always like this, destruction followed by devotion, a cycle as addictive as the rush of a standing ovation. In the quiet aftermath, spooned against his chest, I traced the tattoo on his ribcage, a compass rose, ink faded from too many regrets. Where are we headed? Alex, I murmured, half asleep. He tightened his arm around me. Straight to the top, baby. Together, but together was fracturing. Whispers rippled through the cast, Alex pitching solo tweaks to the composer, sidelining our duets for his arias. He's gunning for the Tony nod, a dancer confided over lukewarm Szechuan at the after-rehearsal spot. And you're collateral. I laughed it off. But the seed took root, sprouting thorns that pricked at every interaction. When he canceled our weekend getaway to the Berkshires, claiming a meeting with Victor, I confronted him in the green room, mirror reflecting two men on the brink. Be honest, I demanded, voice steady despite the quake in my chest. Is this real? Or am I just your pretty understudy? Alex paused, mid-buttoning his shirt, his reflection meeting mine with eyes that flickered, guilt, defiance. Then he, don't do this. But he didn't deny it. And that silence roared louder than any spotlight. The climax hit during Tech Week. The theater a hive of chaos, lights stabbing like accusations, sound cues booming like heartbeats. Our big confrontation scene, Elias discovering Thorne's treachery, swelled with improvised fury. I poured everything into it, the betrayal from that phone call, the jealousy from the alley, the love that refused to die. My voice cracked on the high note, raw and ragged, tears streaming as I collapsed to my knees, clutching at his costume lapels. You promised me the river, not the flood. The line improvised itself, born of bone-deep hurt. Alex froze for a split second, off-script, unmoored, then ad-libbed back, his hand cupping my face with a tenderness that blurred the fourth wall. I drowned us both. Forgive the storm. The crew held its breath, even the stage manager wiped her eyes. Magic, the director whispered later, over champagne toasts. But as the bubbles fizzed on my tongue, I caught Alex's glance across the room, proud, possessive, but edged with something sharper. Calculation. That night, we celebrated in his apartment, the city a glittering backdrop from his rare window view. Candlelight danced across his skin as he undressed me, slow and worshipful, his mouth mapping every inch like a penitent seeking absolution. You were phenomenal, he breathed, sinking to his knees, his tongue tracing patterns that made stars explode behind my eyelids. I threaded fingers through his hair, guiding him, lost in the worship of it all, the way he took me apart with such reverence, as if I were the only melody that mattered. We moved to the bed, bodies sinking in a rhythm older than words, his thrusts deep and deliberate, each one a vow whispered against my neck. Te amo, he gasped in that fake Italian, and I shattered around him, crying out his name like a prayer. Lying spent in the tangle of sheets, his head on my chest, I dared to dream aloud. After opening night, let's get out, real trip this time. California? Maybe. See the ocean. He hummed agreement, but his fingers stilled on my skin. Then, the bomb dropped, casual as a weather report. Victor's offering me a lead in his next project. Pilot, TV. Big budget. Starts right after previews. My heart stuttered. We. Beth. Voice small. He lifted his head, eyes searching mine. It's solo, Denny. But it's a launch pad. For both of us. Eventually, the words hung, heavy with implication. For both. But the math didn't add. 1 seat. 2 dreamers. I nodded, throat tight, and he kissed me goodnight, oblivious to the fracture widening. The next day, betrayal crystallized. I found the email on his open laptop, left carelessly on the kitchen counter while he showered. From Victor, thrilled about the chemistry read. Alex, you're thorn incarnate. Elias is window dressing. But you? Star material. Let's discuss post-opening. My place. 8 p.m. Bring that fire. Attached. A script excerpt. Thorn's arc expanded. Elias reduced to a footnote. I slammed the laptop shut, the crack echoing like a gunshot. When Alex emerged, towel slung low, I hurled the truth at him, words flying like shrapnel. Window dressing? That's me? Your fucking prop? Filled? Stammering denials. But the damage was done. It's business. Danny. Survival in this cutthroat world. Business. The word tasted like ash. I grabbed my coat, storming into the sleet-lashed streets, his shouts fading behind me. For 3 days, radio silence. Rehearsals became minefields. I'd arrive late, voice flat, eyes averted. The cast tiptoed around us, the air thick with unspoken drama. On day 4, he cornered me in the fly loft, the ropes creaking like old bones. I canceled the meeting, he said, voice breaking. Chose us. His hands trembled as he pulled me close, forehead to mine. I love you, Daniel Harper. More than any role, any light. Tears tracked down his cheeks, mirroring mine. And in that suspended space above the stage, our stage, I forgave. Finn. We kissed like drowning men, desperate and devouring. The creak of pulleys our only witness. But forgiveness is fragile as hoarfrost, and New York's winter winds are cruel. Opening night loomed like a guillotine, sharp and inevitable. The betrayal subplot had been dialed back, my doing, after a tearful intervention with the director, but the scars lingered. Invisible ink under blacklight. Alex and I rebuilt in fits and starts, tentative texts turning to midnight meetups. His apologies etched in the careful way he held me now, like I might vanish. I'm all in, he'd swear. cooking pasta in my tiny kitchen, sauce splattering like abstract art. I'd believe him, because the alternative, losing him, was a void too vast to contemplate. Was a rehearsal, endless takes until the blocking felt right. The Hudson Theater buzzed with pre-show frenzy. Ushers in crisp black, champagne flutes clinking in the lobby. Backstage, the air hummed with nerves, actors pacing, vocalists humming warm-ups, the wardrobe mistress pinning last-minute hems. I was Elias incarnate, hair gelled into windswept waves, costume a threadbare coat evoking immigrant grit. Alex, this the one? Cut a dashing figure in his tailored vest, suspenders framing the breadth of his chest. He caught my eye in the mirror, winking with that roguish charm. Knocking dead. Tenor boy. His hands squeezed my shoulder, a promise in the pressure. Curtain rose to a full house, critics in the front rows, their notepads poised like daggers. The overture swelled, brass and strings evoking the river's relentless flow. And I stepped into the light. Elias's journey unfolded, arrival in the city of dreams, first fumbling steps toward stardom. The audience leaned in, hooked by the raw poetry of it all. Then Thorne entered, Alex striding on stage with predatory grace, his baritone unfurling like smoke over water. Our first duet shimmered, harmonies intertwining in a dance of discovery and desire. I felt it again, that electric pull, the way our voices locked like lovers' limbs. The house erupted midway, a premature ovation that set my blood singing. But the confrontation loomed, the scene where truths clashed like thunderheads. As scripted now, it was redemption-tinged. Thorne confesses his fears, not his schemes, begging Elias to stay the course together. I channeled every hurt into it, the email, the alley, the endless cycle of doubt. My voice rose, quivering with accusation. You built me up to break me down, your river's just a grave. Alex countered, dropping to one knee, his face a mask of anguish so real it blurred the footlights. Then pull me from the depths. My anchor, teach this fool to swim. Our hands clasped, spotlights converging in a halo, and as the music crested, he pulled me into an embrace that felt achingly genuine. The final note hung, pure and piercing, and the theater exploded, whistles, thumps, a tidal wave of acclaim. Curtain call was delirium, bows rippling from ensemble to leads, roses tossed like confetti. Alex and I took the final pair, arms linked, his free hand stealing to the small of my back. We did it, he mouthed over the roar, eyes shining with something deeper than stage triumph. Backstage, hugs and high-fives blurred into after-party invites. But we slipped away, up to the roof, where the city sprawled like a jeweled beast below. Snow had stopped, stars pricking the velvet sky, and we stood wrapped in each other's coats, sharing a flask of bourbon that burned sweet. To us, he toasted, clinking the metal lip against my teeth. The storm and the song, I left, the sound bubbling free, and kissed him under the faint glow of the Empire State, its red beacon pulsing like a heartbeat. In that moment, betrayal felt like a distant echo, drowned by the rush of what we'd built. We made love right there, on a nest of forgotten props hauled up for storage, blankets and cushions under the chill stars. It was tender, unhurried, his mouth exploring with the reverence of a man reborn, fingers interlacing as I rode him slow, our breaths sinking to the distant wail of sirens. "Forever," he groaned as we crested. And I believed it, sealing the vow with my release. The reviews hit like a monsoon the next morning. The New York Times hailed our chemistry as the pulse of the production, Variety dubbing Alex a baritone blaze, and me the tenor's tender revelation. Tony Buzz hummed in agent voicemails. And suddenly, doors swung wide, callbacks, books, even a spot on The Late Show. Alex glowed, fielding calls with boyish excitement. But I saw the undercurrent, Victor's shadow. The L.A. lure still whispering. "We'll talk after the run," he promised over brunch at Sarabeth's, his foot nudging mine under the table. I nodded, content in the bubble of our success. But bubbles burst. 2 weeks in, during a matinee, disaster struck. Mid-duet, my voice gave out, a sharp crack on the high C, the note hanging ragged like torn silk. The audience gasped, Alex faltered, improvising a cover, but the damage was done. I finished on autopilot, Bose mechanical, then fled to the green room, throat aflame. Vocal nodes. The doc confirmed later, overeat, stress, the perfect storm. Or risk permanent damage. Rest? In the vortex of a hit show? The director was sympathetic but firm. Understudy steps in for a week. Alex raged on my behalf, storming meetings. But I heard the subtext in his calls. How does this affect us? Isolation crept in as I holed up in my sublet. Lozenges and humidifiers my only company. Alex visited, bearing soup and scripts. But his energy waned, rehearsals with the understudy pulling him late. Exhaustion etching lines around his eyes. "It's temporary," he'd say, collapsing beside me. But his kisses tasted of obligation. One night, scrolling X, formerly Twitter, in the witching hour, I stumbled on the thread, fan speculation about trouble in tenor paradise. Blurry photos from the party of Alex cozying up to Victor. Just networking. I told myself. But doubt gnawed like rats in the walls. The real gut punch came via text. Innocuous at first, meeting ran late. Crash at mine tomorrow? But attached was a location pin, not his apartment, but a sleek hotel in Midtown. Victor's territory. I confronted him the next day, waiting in the lobby like a ghost, collar turned up against the drizzle. Emerged, tie loosened, laughing at something on his phone, until he saw me. "Danny? What?" The hotel bar's murmur swelled around us as I held up the text. Voice steady as rebar. "Explain." His face crumpled, then hardened. "It's nothing. Pitch meeting. Victor wants in on a film adaptation." But his eyes darted. Guilty. I pressed. Relentless. The emails I'd screenshotted. The late nights. The way he'd pulled away since my voice cracked. "Am I still your anchor, Alex? Or just dead weight now?" He deflated, slumping onto a lobby settee. "I panicked," he admitted, voice small. "The show's soaring, but I was calling without you holding me back. Holding back." The words eviscerated. "You think I'm the chain? After everything?" The fight spilled into the street, rain sheeting down, turning us to drowned rats. "I love you," he shouted over honking taxis. "But this life's a meat grinder. I can't carry us both." Carry. As if I were baggage, not ballast. I left, bitter and broken. "Then don't." Go chase your solo thorn. Leave Elias to sink. I walked away, blocks blurring, until I hit the river, the real Hudson, black and brooding under the Brooklyn Bridge. On the wind-lashed promenade, I screamed into the void, voice hoarse but unbroken, the water swallowing my rage like an old friend. He didn't follow. Days turned to a week. The show running without me, understudy earning raves. My nodes healed slow. Therapy sessions unpacking the toxicity I'd mistaken for passion. Friends, real ones, from the ensemble, rallied. Group texts laced with memes. Invites to dive bars where we sang off-key karaoke instead of arias. You're more than his muse. Danny, my roommate Lila said over cheap wine. Her drag queen wisdom sharp as stilettos. You're the whole damn symphony. Yet the pull lingered. A phantom ache. Opening night for the understudy stretch. I snuck into the back of the house. Anonymous in the dim. Watching Alex command the stage, magnificent, magnetic, tore fresh wounds. Our duet, now with a stranger's tenor, felt hollow. His eyes scanning the crowd as if searching for me. Intermission found him slipping out, spotting me in the alley like fate's cruel joke. You came, he breathed, closing the distance, hands framing my face. Transit, desperate, kiss me, fierce, apologetic, tasting of salt and second chances. I fucked up. Victor's out. It's you or nothing. I melted. Because weakness is human, and love is a stubborn weed. We tumbled back to his place, shedding wet clothes in a trail to the bedroom, bodies colliding with the urgency of the condemned. He worshipped me that night, slow licks and lingering caresses, his baritone humming vibrations against my most sensitive spots. My river, he murmured, entering me with a gentleness that belied his strength, our rhythms building to a crescendo that left us sobbing in unison. Dawn found us entwined, his confessions spilling soft, the fear of fading, the betrayal born of self-preservation. I choose us, he vowed, and in the fragile light, I wanted to believe. But vows are wind, and winter's gales howl merciless. Spring teased the city with tentative blooms, cherry blossoms unfurling along the high line like hesitant apologies. Echoes settled into a sold-out rhythm. My voice restored enough for partial returns, Elias's solos. The duets intact. Alex and I navigated a fragile truce, therapy double dates, where a soft-spoken shrink unpacked our patterns, quiet evenings at the Frick, wandering galleries hand in hidden hand, stealing kisses behind Rodin sculptures. Growth, he called it, over gelato in Little Italy, his spoon clinking mine like a toast. I nodded, savoring the sticky sweetness, but scars itched beneath the surface, reminders that trust is tissue paper over broken glass. The understudy's tenure birthed unintended gifts. He'd infused fresh fire into the role, forcing Alex and me to evolve our chemistry. Our scenes crackled anew. The betrayal arc, toned down but potent, mirroring our real reconciliation. Critics noted it, Harper and Kane, from fracture to fusion, a love letter to forgiveness. Tony nominations dropped like manna, lead actor nods for both. Buzz that packed the house nightly. We celebrated in whispers, his lips on my neck during notes, my hand palming him discreetly under the conference table. Intimacy deepened, exploratory, toys smuggled from a discreet shop in Chelsea. Blindfolds that heightened every gasp, His submission a revelation, baritone on his knees, voice muffled around me, green eyes locked in vulnerable surrender. Yet shadows lengthened. Victor lurked at after-parties, his silver smile a shark's flash, dropping hints about fallback options. Alex stiffened at the sight, steering me away. But I caught the flicker, the temptation, ever present. My own offers trickled in, a voiceover gig for an indie film, a workshop for a queer opera upstate. Independence tasted bittersweet, a reminder that I didn't need his orbit to shine. "Proud of you," he said one night, after I booked the lead in Whispers of the Plains, a chamber piece about rural coming-outs. But pride edged with possessiveness, just don't forget us. The true storm brewed off Broadway, in a loft theater staging shadows on the boardwalk. A raw exploration of infidelity in the arts. Alex landed the director's chair, his first. A passion project funded by Victor. Whispers confirmed. Rehearsals overlapped with echoes, stretching him thin. Dawn calls for one, midnight runs for the other. He'd collapse into bed beside me, reeking of other actors' sweat, murmuring lines in his sleep that weren't ours. It's art, he'd defend over cold takeout, eyes bloodshot. Mirroring life, betrayal, redemption. I bit my tongue, but the echo chamber amplified, his phone buzzing at odd hours. Cast updates that lit his face with secretive glow. Suspicion festered slow, a poison seeping through veins. One humid June evening, post-echo's bow, I trailed him to the loft, curiosity cloaked as concern. The space pulsed with creative fever, actors in various undress, blocking a bedroom scene with brutal intimacy. Alex directed from the shadows, voice commanding, but his hand lingered too long on the lead's shoulder, a lithe dancer named Riley, 24 and all cheekbones and charm. I watched from the fire escape, heart hammering, as the rehearsal extended, Riley feeding him lines post-rap, their laughter spilling into the alley like spilled wine. I confronted him at dawn, waiting in his kitchen, coffee gone cold. Riley, the name tasted like bile. He froze, mud midway to lips. Professional, Denny. Chemistry reads, but his evasion screamed volumes. The fight was seismic, accusations hurled like stage props. His, "You're paranoid," clashing with my, "You're repeating history." He stormed out, slamming the door on my sobs. Days blurred into a chasm, texts unread, calls to voicemail. The show a mechanical march where our eyes never met. The climax shattered on Tony night. The plaza ablaze with glamour and grit. Nominated side by side. We arrived separate, me in a slim-cut tux from a thrift find. Him in Victor-funded velvet. The ceremony dragged, speeches saccharine. Performances polished, but tension crackled between us. Unspoken electricity. When they called leads, the room held breath. For his raw vulnerability and transcendent tenor. Daniel Harper. Flashbulbs blinded, I stumbled on stage, clutching the statuette, voice cracking in thanks, to Mom, to the cast, to the man who taught me to sing through storms. Alex's name hovered unspoken. A ghost in the wings. He won supporting, ironic, given our arcs, but his speech gutted me, to the betrayals that forge us stronger. And to the love that redeems. Eyes locked on mine across the footlights. Pleading. Backstage. Cast rained floods. Champagne sprays, But he found me in a quiet alcove, trophy in hand. Danny, I cut him off. The weight of gold suddenly leaden. Redemption's earned. Alex. Not scripted. I walked, heels clicking on marble, into the night where paparazzi swarmed like locusts. He pursued, hailing a cab to my sublet, pounding doors until I relented. The reckoning unfolded on the fire escape. City lights, an indifferent audience. Riley was a mistake, he confessed. Voice raw. A weak moment. Victor pushing boundaries, testing my resolve. Details spilled. A drunken kiss after hours. Hands wandering but stopping short. Guilt driving him home to me. I chose you. Every time. Tears carved tracks down his face. Handsome in ruin. And I wavered, because love is labyrinthine, full of dead ends and detours. We clawed back to solid ground. Slower this time, boundaries etched in stone. Therapy a weekly rite. Shadows wrapped with Alex firing Victor. Redirecting funds to a queer youth program. My opera bowed to acclaim. A bridge to solo stardom. Summers found us in the Catskills. A rented cabin where we hiked trails hand in hand. Fucked lazy in hammocks. Sang duets to the loons. Soulmates, he called us. Etching it into a tree trunk with his pocket knife. I traced the letters. Believing at last. But humanism tempers happily ever afters with truth's grit. A year on. Echoes closed to thunderous farewell. Alex landing a Netflix series. But with provisions, monthly flights. FaceTime foreplay. I stayed rooted. Booking a residency at the Met. Our lives parallel rivers converging at bends. Betrayals taught resilience, passion. The beauty in breakage. We weren't perfect, arguments flared like summer storms. Doubts whispered in quiet hours, but we chose repair over rupture. Every dawn a recommitment. On our anniversary, marking that fateful performance, I stood on the Hudson Promenade. Wind tousling my hair. Alex beside me. He slipped a ring on my finger, simple platinum, engraved with our duet's refrain. Rivers run deep, he murmured, kissing knuckles. And claim what belongs. I pulled him close. Hearts sinking to the water's lap. The city a symphony of second chances. In America's grand theater, flawed. Unforgiving, we'd claimed each other. Souls intertwined. Not in ownership, but in the profound freedom of choosing. Again and again. The end? Not tragedy, nor unalloyed bliss, but the quiet victory of two men loving wholly. Humanly, through passion's fire. Betrayal's flood. To the steady shore of souls at peace.